In this part, we'll focus on working with the Repair tab. The Repair tab contains a set of utility tools designed to fix, clean, and prepare meshes directly inside the Unity editor. These operations help resolve common issues such as shading problems, incorrect transforms, rigging adjustments, and material cleanups. Let's start with smooth shading. This operation recalculates the mesh normals to produce smooth shading across connected surfaces. Instead of showing visible edges between triangles, lighting is blended smoothly across the mesh. This is especially useful for curved surfaces, organic shapes, and most characters or environment models. The operation fully supports undo. The original mesh asset in your asset files remain unchanged. After applying the operation, the game object holding the mesh will be marked with star, indicating that it needs to be saved. Next is flat shading. This operation recalculates the mesh normals to produce flat shading. Instead of blending light across faces, each triangle is shaded independently. This makes the edges between triangles clearly visible. Flat shading is often used for stylized art asset or low poly models. The operation fully supports undo. The original mesh asset in your asset files remain unchanged. After applying the operation, the game object holding the mesh will be marked with star, indicating that it needs to be saved. Next is flip normals. This operation reverses the direction of the mesh normals. Normals define which side of a face is considered outside of the mesh. When normals are flipped incorrectly, a mesh may appear inside out or invisible from certain viewing angles. Flip normals simply inverse the surface direction of the mesh. The operation fully supports undo. The original mesh asset in your asset files remain unchanged. After applying the operation, the game object holding the mesh will be marked with star, indicating that it needs to be saved. Next is remove unused materials. This operation cleans the mesh by removing material slots that are not assigned to any triangle. Imported models or edited meshes sometimes contain extra material slots that are no longer used. These unused materials affect performance. Remove unused materials automatically detects and removes those unused slots. This helps keep the mesh clean and organized. The operation fully supports undo. The original mesh asset in your asset files remain unchanged. After applying the operation, the game object holding the mesh will be marked with star, indicating that it needs to be saved. Next is transfer weight. This operation copies skinning weights from a rigged mesh to another mesh. Skinning weights define how strongly each bone influences the verticals of a mesh during animation. In simple terms, this allows a new mesh to follow the same skeleton and animation as the original character. Let's look at practical example. Here we have a static hoodie mesh and a zombie character that already has a rig and skin weights. Moreover, as you can see, the hoodie does not match the zombie yet, it's too small. Firstly, we can use the proportional editing tools in MeshGod 4000 to adjust the hoodie. For example, we can move it slightly here and scale up parts of the mesh here so that it better fits the character. Let's move hoodie game object to share the same parent as our zombie. Now we can use transfer weight. This copies the skinning weights from the zombie mesh to the hoodie. As a result, the hoodie will deform correctly with the skeleton during animation. The operation fully supports undo. The original mesh asset in your project files remain unchanged. After applying the operation, the game object will be marked with star, indicating that it needs to be saved. Next is bind to rig. This operation allows you to bind a skinned mesh to a different skeleton in hierarchy. Let's look at practical example. Here we have two characters, each with its own rig. From one character, we separate the head mesh, which is already skinned. Now, we move the head into the hierarchy of the second character. However, when we move the bones of the new character, the head does not move. That happens because the mesh is still bound to its original skeleton. Using bind to rig, we'll reconnect the skinned mesh to new rig. After binding, both meshes are controlled by the same skeleton. Now, when the bones move, the head and the body animate together correctly. The operation fully supports undo. The original mesh asset in your project files remains unchanged. After applying the operation, the game object will be marked with star, indicating that it needs to be saved. Next is orientation set. This operation allows you to correct the orientation of a mesh. Imported models sometimes arrive with incorrect rotation applied. Because of this, the local axis of the object may not align properly. This can make rotation and animation difficult to control. For example, here we have a robot arm that is incorrectly oriented in space. When we try to rotate it, the axes are not aligned in a useful way. Using orientation set, we can fix the orientation of the mesh. After applying the operation, the axes are aligned correctly. Now the robot arms rotates clearly and is much easier to animate. The operation fully supports undo. The original mesh asset in your asset files remain unchanged. After applying the operation, the game object will be marked with star, indicating that it needs to be saved. The final operation in this tab is bake scale and rotation. This operation applies the current scale and rotation directly into mesh data. Imported models sometimes appear in Unity with unusual transform values. For example, this model has scale of 100, 100, 100 after being imported. In this situation, we can see some of faces flickering on the ghost material. This visual artifact can indicate that something is not quite correct with the mesh transform. Using bake scale and rotation, we apply the current transform to the mesh itself. This resets the object transform while preserving the visible shape of the model. After baking, the mesh behaves correctly and the transfer values become clean. The operation fully supports undo. The original mesh asset in your asset files remain unchanged. After applying the operation, the game object will be marked with star, indicating that it needs to be saved.